Catherine sat quietly in the morning room of Kensington Palace, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had long gone cold. The autumn sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting gentle shadows across the polished wooden floor. She watched as William paced back and forth, his phone pressed to his ear, speaking in hushed tones to his private secretary. The news had arrived 3 days ago. A diplomatic mission to Afghanistan, they called it. A chance to visit British troops serving overseas and to strengthen relationships with local leaders. It was an honor, they said, a duty that only a member of the royal family could fulfill. But Catherine knew what it really meant. William would be gone for 6 weeks, traveling through one of the most dangerous regions in the world. Yes, I understand the security protocols, William was saying into the phone. No, Catherine won't be joining me on this trip. The children need stability at home. Catherine felt her heart sink a little deeper. They had discussed it the night before, lying in bed with George, Charlotte, and Louis asleep down the hall. William had held her close, explaining that this mission was different from his previous overseas visits. The political situation was delicate, and the security risks were real. The palace advisors had been clear this was a solo mission. "Mummy, why does Daddy look worried?" Charlotte's small voice broke through Catherine's thoughts. Their 7-year-old daughter stood in the doorway, still in her pajamas, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit. Catherine opened her arms, and Charlotte climbed onto her lap. "Daddy has some important work to do, sweetheart. He'll be traveling for a few weeks. Will he miss my school play?" Charlotte asked, her brown eyes wide with concern. Catherine's throat tightened. The school play was in 4 weeks. William had promised Charlotte he would be there, sitting in the front row just like he had for George's football match last month. "We'll have to see, darling. Sometimes Daddy's work takes him away when we don't want it to." William ended his call and turned to face them. The worry lines around his eyes had deepened over the past few days, but he managed to smile when he saw Charlotte curled up with Catherine. He walked over and kissed the top of Charlotte's head. "What are my 2 favorite girls talking about?" he asked, though Catherine could hear the forced cheerfulness in his voice. "Charlotte was asking about your trip," Catherine said softly. William knelt down so he was at eye level with their daughter. "I know it seems scary when I have to go away for work, but I promise I'll call you every single day. And I'll bring back something special for you, George and Louis." Charlotte nodded solemnly, but Catherine could see the confusion in her young face. Their children were used to their parents traveling for royal duties, but usually they went together, or the trips were shorter. This felt different, and even Charlotte could sense it. Later that evening, after the children were in bed, Catherine found William in his study. He was staring at a map spread across his desk, his finger tracing the route he would take through Afghanistan. Documents marked confidential were scattered around the map. "The security briefing is tomorrow," he said without looking up. "They'll go through everything again. Emergency protocols, communication schedules, contingency plans." Catherine moved to stand behind him, placing her hands on his shoulders. She could feel the tension in his muscles. "You don't have to do this, you know. There are other ways to support the troops." William turned in his chair to face her. "Catherine, you know I do. This isn't just about supporting the troops, though that's important. The Prime Minister specifically requested this mission. There are peace talks happening, delicate negotiations. Having a member of the royal family there, showing Britain's commitment to stability in the region, it could make a real difference. But why does it have to be you? Why now?" Catherine's voice cracked slightly. William reached up and took her hands in his. "Because I served there. I know the region. I speak some of the local dialects, and the military leaders trust me. The palace advisors think my presence could help bridge some important gaps in the negotiations." Catherine sank into the chair across from his desk. 6 weeks, William. 6 weeks in a war zone. I know it's a long time. I know the timing isn't ideal with Charlotte's play and Louis starting his new school term. But Catherine, if this mission helps bring even a small amount of peace to the region, if it helps our soldiers come home sooner, isn't it worth it? She looked at the man she had fallen in love with all those years ago at university. He was still the same William who had wooed her with his quiet determination and his deep sense of duty. But now that duty sometimes felt like a rival for his attention, a force that could take him away from their family when they needed him most. "I'm scared," she admitted quietly. William stood up and came around the desk to kneel beside her chair. "I'm scared too. I'm scared of leaving you alone with 3 children for 6 weeks. I'm scared of missing important moments in their lives. I'm scared of something happening to me and never seeing you again." Tears welled up in Catherine's eyes. "Then why are you going?" "Because I took an oath when I married you, and another when I accepted my role as heir to the throne. I promised to serve Britain and the Commonwealth even when it's difficult, even when it means personal sacrifice. You knew that when you said yes to my proposal." Catherine remembered that day by the lake in Kenya, when William had gotten down on one knee with his mother's engagement ring. She had said yes not just to marriage but to a life of service, to sharing William with an entire nation. "But knowing it and living it were two very different things. I just wish—" She started, then stopped. "What do you wish?" "I wish we could have a normal life sometimes. I wish you could just be George, Charlotte, and Louis's father, not a prince with obligations to the world." William pulled her into his arms, and she buried her face in his shoulder. "I wish that too sometimes. But this is who we are, Catherine. This is the life we chose together." They held each other in the quiet study, surrounded by maps and official documents, knowing that in just a few days, an ocean and a continent would separate them. Outside, London continued its evening rhythm, unaware that in a palace across the city, a husband and wife were preparing for one of the most difficult goodbyes of their marriage. The morning of William's departure dawned gray and drizzly, matching Catherine's mood perfectly. She had barely slept, lying awake listening to William's steady breathing beside her, trying to memorize the sound. Now, as she watched him pack his final items into a military-style duffel bag, the reality of his departure hit her with full force. "I've put extra photographs in the front pocket," she said, handing him a small leather folder, "one of each of the children from last month and that family photo from our Cornwall holiday." William smiled as he flipped through the pictures. "Louis looks so much like George did at that age," he said, pausing at a photo of their youngest son building sandcastles on the beach. "He asked me yesterday why you couldn't just send someone else to do your work," Catherine said, sitting on the edge of their bed. "I didn't know how to explain that sometimes being a prince means you can't send someone else." The children had taken the news of their father's extended trip differently. George, at 10, had tried to be brave and grown up, asking serious questions about Afghanistan and whether Daddy would be safe. Charlotte had been quieter than usual, clinging to William whenever he was in the room. 4-year-old Louis seemed to understand only that Daddy was going on a very long airplane ride. "Where are the children now?" William asked, zipping up his bag. "Having breakfast with Maria. I thought it might be easier if we said goodbye here privately before the official departure." William nodded. The official departure would happen at RAF Northolt, with photographers capturing his wave from the aircraft steps. But their real goodbye would happen here in their bedroom, away from the cameras and the world. A soft knock on the door interrupted them. "Mummy? Daddy?" George's voice called out. "Come in, sweetheart," Catherine called. All 3 children tumbled into the room, still in their pajamas. Charlotte immediately climbed onto the bed next to Catherine, while Louis ran straight to William. George hung back slightly, trying to maintain his big brother composure. "Is it time for Daddy to go?" Charlotte asked in a small voice. William sat down on the bed and pulled Louis onto his lap. "Not quite yet, Princess. I wanted to have a special talk with all of you first." He looked at each of his children, his future kingdom, his greatest pride. "While I'm away, I need you to take care of Mummy for me. George, you're the oldest, so you're in charge of making sure everyone brushes their teeth and finishes their vegetables." George straightened up, taking his new responsibility seriously. "I will, Dad, I promise." "Charlotte, I need you to keep being your wonderful, kind self. Help Mummy with Louis and remember that even when I'm far away, I'm thinking about you every single day." Charlotte nodded, tears forming in her eyes. "Will you really call every day?" "Every single day that I possibly can," William promised. "And if I can't call one day because of work, I'll call twice the next day." He turned to Louis, who was playing with the buttons on William's shirt. "And you, little man, I need you to be brave and listen to Mummy. Can you do that for me?" Louis nodded enthusiastically, not fully grasping the weight of the moment but understanding that something important was happening. Catherine watched her husband with their children, her heart both breaking and swelling with love. This was the William the public rarely saw. Not the future king or the Duke of Cambridge, but simply a father who adored his children and hated to leave them. "I have something for each of you," William said, reaching into his nightstand drawer. He pulled out 3 small wrapped packages. George opened his first, revealing a compass engraved with his initials. "This will always point north no matter where you are," William explained. "Just like my love for you will always point toward home, no matter how far away I am." Charlotte's gift was a silver locket with a tiny photo of the family inside. "You can wear this close to your heart," William said, helping her put it on. "And whenever you miss me, you can open it and see all of us together." Louis received a stuffed lion, soft and golden like his hair. "This is King Lion," William said. "He'll keep you safe while I'm away, and he'll remind you that you're brave and strong." The children examined their gifts with wonder, but Catherine could see the underlying sadness in their faces. They were old enough to understand that 6 weeks was a very long time. "When will you be back?" George asked. "6 weeks," William said gently. "That's about as long as our summer holiday, remember? Before you know it, I'll be home and we'll have so many stories to share with each other." Catherine's throat tightened. 6 weeks suddenly felt like an eternity. After breakfast, the family gathered in the entrance hall of Kensington Palace. William's security detail was waiting outside, along with the car that would take him to the airfield. The children had gotten dressed in their school uniforms, trying to maintain some normalcy in what was anything but a normal day. "I want you all to remember something," William said, kneeling down to be at the children's eye level. "Being apart doesn't mean we're not still a family. We're connected by something much stronger than distance." He hugged each child individually, whispering private words of love and encouragement. When he got to George, Catherine saw her eldest son finally break down, wrapping his arms around his father's neck and crying quietly. "I don't want you to go, Dad," George whispered. "I don't want to go either." "Son," William replied, his own voice thick with emotion. "But sometimes we have to do difficult things for important reasons. You'll understand when you're older." Charlotte was next, and she clung to William like a little monkey. "Promise you'll come back," she said fiercely. "I promise, my darling girl. Wild horses couldn't keep me away from you." Louis was the easiest and hardest goodbye at the same time. He hugged his father cheerfully, not understanding that this wasn't just a normal workday goodbye. His innocence was both a blessing and a heartbreak. Finally, William stood and faced Catherine. The children watched as their parents embraced, sensing the gravity of the moment even if they couldn't fully understand it. "Take care of yourself," Catherine whispered against his ear. "Come home to us. Always," William whispered back. "I love you. I love you too." They kissed softly, aware that the children were watching, aware that this might be photographed from somewhere outside the palace gates. But for just a moment, they were simply a husband and wife saying goodbye. As William's car pulled away from Kensington Palace, Catherine stood in the doorway with the children, waving until the vehicle disappeared around the corner. The autumn wind whipped through the courtyard, scattering leaves and carrying with it the first real chill of the season. "When is Daddy coming home?" Louis asked, tugging on Catherine's hand. "Soon, sweetheart," Catherine said. "Those 6 weeks felt like anything but soon. Daddy will be home soon." That night, after the children were finally asleep, Catherine sat alone in their bedroom, looking at the empty space where William's travel bag had been that morning. His pillow still smelled like his cologne, and she buried her face in it, allowing herself to cry for the first time that day. Tomorrow she would be strong for the children, for the public, for the crown. But tonight she was simply a woman missing her husband. 2 weeks into William's absence, Catherine had fallen into a new rhythm of single parenthood, though it was far from easy. The palace staff had been wonderful, stepping in to help with school runs and activities, but nothing could replace the simple comfort of having William there to share the daily challenges of raising 3 young children. "Mummy, why can't we just go visit Daddy?" Charlotte asked one evening as Catherine tucked her into bed. It was the same question Charlotte had asked every night since William left. "Because Daddy is working in a place that's very far away, and it's not safe for children to visit," Catherine explained patiently, smoothing Charlotte's hair back from her forehead. "But we visit other places when Daddy works. We went to Canada and Australia, and that place with all the flowers." Catherine's heart ached. Charlotte was referring to their royal tour of the Netherlands the previous spring, where they had visited the famous tulip gardens. Those trips felt like a lifetime ago now, when they were a complete family traveling together. "This is different, sweetheart. Afghanistan is not a place where families can visit." "But Daddy calls us every day, doesn't he?" Charlotte nodded, but Catherine could see the confusion and sadness in her daughter's eyes. Video calls were not the same as having Daddy home to read bedtime stories and give goodnight hugs. The calls themselves had become both the best and worst part of Catherine's day. Best because she could see William's face and hear his voice, reassuring herself that he was safe. Worst because each call reminded her how far away he was and how much they were all missing him. That evening's call came at 8 o'clock London time, which was midnight in Kabul. William looked tired, older somehow, sitting in what appeared to be a small military office with concrete walls behind him. "How are my beautiful family?" he asked, his smile lighting up the screen despite the exhaustion in his eyes. "We're good, Daddy," George said, leaning close to the laptop camera. "I scored a goal in football today. Mr. Henderson said it was a perfect shot." William's face beamed with pride. "That's wonderful, son. I wish I could have seen it. Maybe you can show me some moves when I get home." "Louis learned to tie his shoes today," Charlotte announced, pushing her way into view of the camera. "Well, almost. He got one shoe right. That's fantastic. Louis, can you show Daddy your shoe tying skills?" 4-year-old Louis appeared on screen, holding up one foot with a crooked bow that was more knot than bow, but his pride was evident. "Look, Daddy, I did it all by myself. I'm so proud of you, little man. Soon you'll be able to help Mummy tie everyone else's shoes too." Catherine watched the interaction with a bittersweet smile. William was trying so hard to stay connected, to be present in their lives despite the distance. But she could see the strain it was taking on him, the effort required to maintain his cheerful demeanor when he was clearly exhausted. After the children said their goodnights and headed to bed, Catherine was left alone with the laptop screen. "How are you, really?" she asked William quietly. His smile faded slightly and she could see the truth in his eyes. "It's challenging. The security situation is more complex than we anticipated. The meetings with local leaders are tense. Everyone is suspicious of everyone else, and finding common ground is proving difficult. Are you safe? As safe as I can be. The security team is excellent, and we're being very careful about where we go and when." He paused, running a hand through his hair. "But Catherine, I can't lie to you. This isn't like the other diplomatic missions I've done. The stakes feel higher here." Catherine felt her stomach tighten with worry. "Maybe you should come home early. Surely they can handle the rest of the negotiations without you." "I can't do that. We're making progress, slowly but surely. There's a chance for a real ceasefire, Catherine. A chance for peace in this region. I can't walk away from that. Not when British lives are at stake." She understood, even as her heart rebelled against it. This was who William was. A man who put duty and service above his own comfort, above even his family's wishes. It was one of the things she had fallen in love with, and one of the things that sometimes made being married to him so difficult. "The children miss you terribly," she said. "Charlotte asks about you constantly, and George is trying so hard to be the man of the house that he's exhausting himself. Yesterday I found him trying to fix the kitchen tap because he thought it was his job to take care of things while you're away." William's expression softened with love and concern. "What about Louis? Louis keeps asking when you're coming home from your work trip. He doesn't really understand that you're gone for so long. Sometimes I think that's a blessing. And what about you? How are you holding up?" Catherine hesitated. She wanted to be strong for him, to not add to his burden while he was dealing with such important and dangerous work. But the loneliness was overwhelming some days, and the responsibility of caring for 3 children while maintaining her own royal duties was taking its toll. "I'm managing," she said finally. "Though I'll admit, I've gained a new appreciation for single parents. I don't know how they do it. You're not alone, Catherine. You have Maria, and the protection officers, and the palace staff." "It's not the same as having you here," she interrupted gently. "The children need their father, and I need my husband." William was quiet for a moment, and she could see the conflict playing out on his face. "I know, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I'm missing so much. I'm sorry you're carrying everything alone. I'm sorry this is so hard. Don't apologize for doing your duty. I knew what I was signing up for when I married you. It's just," she trailed off. "Just what?" "It's just harder than I thought it would be sometimes. The idea of duty, of service, it sounds noble and romantic. But the reality is that it means my husband is in a war zone while I'm home alone with 3 confused children who don't understand why Daddy can't just come home." The connection flickered for a moment, and Catherine's heart jumped with fear that they would be cut off. But William's image stabilized, and she could see that her words had affected him deeply. "Catherine, if you need me to come home." "No, she said firmly. No, William. You're right, this is important work. People's lives are at stake. I can handle 6 weeks. We can handle 6 weeks, are you sure? She nodded, even though she wasn't sure at all. I'm sure, just promise me you'll be careful. Promise me you'll come home to us, I promise. I love you, Catherine. I love you more than I can express in words. I love you too. Now get some sleep. You look exhausted. After they ended the call, Catherine sat in the quiet palace listening to the sounds of London outside her window. Somewhere across the world, her husband was trying to help broker peace in one of the most volatile regions on Earth. And here she was, trying to keep their family together while he was gone. She picked up her phone and scrolled through the photos from that day. George at football practice, Charlotte helping Louis with his homework, all 3 children playing in the garden. Tomorrow she would send these pictures to William, little pieces of home to carry with him in that concrete building so far away. 4 more weeks, she told herself. 4 more weeks and their family would be whole again. 3 weeks into William's mission, Catherine woke to her phone buzzing insistently on the nightstand. The clock showed 2:47 a.m. and her heart immediately began racing. Late-night calls were never good news when your husband was in a war zone. Mrs. Wales? The voice belonged to James Morrison, William's private secretary. I'm sorry to wake you, but I wanted to inform you personally before you heard it elsewhere. There's been an incident in Kabul. Catherine sat up in bed, her hands trembling as she gripped the phone. What kind of incident? Is William all right? His Royal Highness is safe and unharmed, James said quickly. But there was an explosion near the compound where he was meeting with local officials. The security team moved him to a secure location immediately, and he's completely safe. However, the incident will likely be reported in the morning news, and we wanted you to know first. Catherine felt her legs go weak with relief, even as her mind raced with new worries. How close was the explosion? Was anyone hurt? Close enough that the security protocols were activated, but not close enough to pose a direct threat to His Royal Highness. There were some injuries among the local population, but no British personnel were harmed. After hanging up, Catherine lay awake for the rest of the night, staring at the ceiling and imagining all the ways things could have gone wrong. When William called the next morning earlier than usual, she could see the strain in his face despite his attempts to appear calm. You heard about last night, he said. It wasn't a question. James called me. William, maybe this is a sign that you should come home early. Surely the mission has accomplished enough. Catherine, I can't leave now. Last night's explosion wasn't random. It was a deliberate attempt to disrupt the peace talks. If I leave now, it sends the message that terrorism works, that they can scare away diplomatic efforts. I don't care about messages. Catherine's voice cracked with emotion. I care about you coming home alive to your children. They need their father more than Afghanistan needs a British prince. William was quiet for a long moment. The Prime Minister called this morning. She's concerned about the security situation too, but she agrees that leaving now would be catastrophic for the peace process. And what do you want, William? Not what the Prime Minister wants, not what the Foreign Office wants. What do you want? I want to come home to you and the children, he said quietly. I want to wake up next to you and help George with his homework and listen to Charlotte practice piano. I want to build Lego castles with Louis and argue with you about whether we should let the children have ice cream before dinner. Tears streamed down Catherine's face. Then come home. I can't, not yet. Catherine, we're so close to a breakthrough. The different factions are actually talking to each other for the first time in years. If we can just get them to agree to a temporary ceasefire, it could save thousands of lives. That afternoon, Catherine found herself in Hyde Park with the children, trying to maintain some sense of normalcy despite the fear gnawing at her stomach. The photos from the explosion site had been all over the news, showing smoke rising from buildings just blocks away from where William had been meeting with officials. Mummy, why do you look sad? Louis asked, tugging on her coat as they walked toward the playground. I'm not sad, sweetheart. Just thinking about Daddy. Is Daddy in trouble? George asked. At 10, he was old enough to understand that something serious was happening, even if the adults tried to shield him from the details. Catherine sat down on a park bench and pulled Louis onto her lap, while George and Charlotte stood in front of her. Daddy is doing very important work, trying to help people who have been fighting find ways to live in peace. Sometimes that work can be dangerous, but Daddy is very careful and has lots of people protecting him. Like bodyguards? Charlotte asked. Yes, like bodyguards. Very good ones who make sure Daddy stays safe. Why can't the people just stop fighting? George asked, his young face serious. Why do grown-ups fight wars? Catherine struggled to find words that would make sense to a 10-year-old. Sometimes people disagree about very important things and they forget how to talk to each other nicely. Daddy is there to help them remember how to use words instead of fighting. When I disagree with Charlotte, you make us talk it out, George said. Maybe the fighting people need a mummy to help them talk it out too. Despite everything, Catherine smiled. That's very wise, George. Maybe you'll be a peacemaker like your father someday. That evening, the children were quieter than usual during dinner. Even Louis seemed to sense the tension in the air. After they were all in bed, Catherine found herself pacing the palace halls, unable to settle down. She ended up in William's study, surrounded by his books and the photos from their years together. There was their engagement photo, their wedding day, pictures from each child's birth. A life built together piece by piece, memory by memory. The phone rang, startling her from her thoughts. It was William calling earlier than usual. I wanted to call before you went to bed, he said. I know today was difficult. I keep thinking about what would have happened if that explosion had been closer, or if you had been walking down the street when it happened. Catherine's voice was barely above a whisper. But it wasn't. And I wasn't. Catherine, I need you to trust that I'm being as careful as possible. The security team isn't taking any chances. I do trust you. It's everyone else I don't trust. Fair enough. William managed a small smile. How are the children handling everything? They know something is wrong, but they're being brave. George asked me today why grown-ups fight wars. I told him you were there to help people remember how to use words instead of violence. That's a good way to explain it. And it's actually quite accurate. William, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Of course. If the situation doesn't improve, if it becomes too dangerous, will you promise me that you'll come home? Not for the mission, not for Britain, but for us? William was quiet for a long time. Catherine, I can't promise that the decision will be entirely mine to make. That's not what I asked, I know. And I can't give you the answer you want to hear. If I promised to come home at the first sign of danger, I would have been on a plane last night. This mission, it's bigger than just me, bigger than just our family. No, Catherine said firmly. Nothing is bigger than our family. Nothing is more important than you coming home alive. Catherine, no, William. I've supported your duty. I've supported your service. I've raised our children to be proud of the work you do. But I will not sacrifice my husband for a peace treaty that might not even hold. And if thousands of people die because I walked away when things got difficult, that's not your responsibility to carry alone. Yes, it is. That's exactly what it means to be who I am. They were at an impasse, both understanding the other's position but unable to bridge the gap between them. Finally, Catherine spoke. I love you, William. I love your sense of duty and your commitment to service. But I love your life more. I love the man who reads bedtime stories and helps with homework, and holds me when I can't sleep. Don't ask me to choose between supporting your duty and wanting you to come home safe, because I can't do both. I'm not asking you to choose. I'm asking you to trust me. I do trust you. It's the rest of the world I'm worried about. After they said goodbye, Catherine sat alone in William's study until the early hours of the morning, watching the sun rise over London and praying that her husband would see many more sunrises with her. 4 weeks into William's mission, Catherine received news that would change everything. She was in the middle of helping Charlotte with her homework when her private secretary, Emma, knocked on the door of the morning room. Ma'am, I have an urgent call from the Foreign Office. They're asking to speak with you immediately. Catherine's heart dropped. Urgent calls from the Foreign Office while William was overseas could only mean one thing. She asked Emma to stay with Charlotte and took the call in William's study. Your Royal Highness, this is Sarah Mitchell from the Foreign Office. I'm calling to inform you that we've received credible intelligence about a planned attack on the diplomatic compound in Kabul. We're implementing immediate evacuation protocols for all British personnel, including His Royal Highness. Catherine felt a wave of relief wash over her. When will he be leaving? That's the complicated part, ma'am. His Royal Highness is refusing to leave. He believes that his departure at this critical juncture would destroy the progress made in the peace negotiations. He's requesting permission to remain despite the security threat. And what is the Foreign Office's position? We've strongly advised him to evacuate immediately. However, as a senior member of the royal family, the final decision rests with him in the palace. After ending the call, Catherine immediately tried to reach William, but his phone went straight to voicemail. She paced the study for 20 minutes before her phone finally rang. "Catherine, before you say anything, please listen to me." William's voice was urgent, almost pleading. "I already know. The Foreign Office called me. William, you have to come home now. This isn't negotiable anymore. We're on the verge of a major breakthrough. The tribal leaders have agreed to meet with government representatives for the first time in 3 years. If I leave now, it's if you stay, you might die." Catherine's voice broke. "William, please. I'm begging you. Come home to your children. Come home to me. The security team believes the threat is manageable. We're moving to a more secure location and—" "No." Catherine's voice was firm despite her tears. "No more manageable risks. No more secure locations. Our children need their father alive, not martyred for a cause, however noble. Catherine, you knew when you married me that duty would sometimes require sacrifices. I knew I was marrying a prince, not a suicide mission volunteer. There's a difference between duty and recklessness." That evening, Catherine made a decision that would shock the royal establishment. She called an emergency meeting with the Queen's private secretary and the Archbishop of Canterbury. By morning, she had orchestrated something unprecedented in modern royal history. She went public. Catherine's appearance on BBC's Evening News sent shockwaves through Britain and around the world. Sitting in the blue drawing room at Kensington Palace wearing a simple navy dress, she looked directly into the camera and spoke from her heart. "As many of you know, my husband Prince William is currently in Afghanistan on a diplomatic mission of the utmost importance. He has been working tirelessly to help broker peace in a region that has known too much conflict for too long." Catherine paused, her hands folded carefully in her lap, her voice steady despite the emotion in her eyes. "However, the security situation has deteriorated significantly. There are credible threats against the diplomatic compound where my husband is working. The Foreign Office has recommended immediate evacuation of all British personnel." She took a breath, and when she continued, her voice carried the weight of a mother's fear and a wife's love. "William believes that leaving now would undermine the peace process. He feels a duty to see this mission through, regardless of the personal cost. I understand his commitment to service. It's one of the reasons I fell in love with him. But tonight I'm not speaking as the Duchess of Cambridge. I'm speaking as a wife and a mother." The camera captured every nuance of her expression as she continued. "Our children ask me every day when their father is coming home. George, our eldest, has been trying to be the man of the house, taking on responsibilities that no 10-year-old should have to bear. Charlotte keeps a photo of her father under her pillow and kisses it goodnight every evening. Louis, our youngest, still doesn't understand why Daddy can't just come home from his work trip." Catherine's voice cracked slightly, but she pressed on. "I have supported my husband's work without question for over a decade. I have raised our children to be proud of their father's service to Britain and the Commonwealth. But I cannot stand by silently while the man I love, the father of my children, risks his life unnecessarily." She looked directly into the camera, as if speaking to William himself. "Darling, if you're watching this, please come home. Britain needs you alive, not martyred. Your children need their father. I need my husband. The peace process will continue with or without you, but our family cannot continue without you." Catherine then addressed the nation directly. "I'm asking for your help. If you believe, as I do, that Prince William has already done more than enough in service of peace, please let your voices be heard. Call your MPs, contact the palace, send messages of support. Help me bring my husband home." The interview concluded with Catherine speaking directly to the families of all British personnel serving overseas. "To every military family, every diplomatic family, every family that has a loved one serving far from home, I see you. I understand your sacrifice and I honor your strength. Tonight I join you in praying for the safe return of all our people." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, "Bring William home" was trending worldwide on social media. The palace switchboard was flooded with calls. MPs reported record numbers of constituents contacting their offices. Even international leaders began weighing in, with several offering to step in and continue the diplomatic mission. Back in Kabul, William watched his wife's interview on a secure tablet, surrounded by his security team in the reinforced safe room of the diplomatic compound. The room was silent except for the distant sound of helicopters overhead and the occasional crackle of radio communications. "Sir, Colonel Matthews, his lead protection officer, spoke quietly. The extraction helicopter can be here in 30 minutes. The advance team is already at the landing zone. William stared at the screen where Catherine's image had been just moments before. He thought about George trying to fix the kitchen tap, about Charlotte sleeping with his photo, about Louis not understanding why Daddy was gone for so long. "Sir?" Colonel Matthews prompted gently. William looked up at the faces around him. Good people, dedicated professionals who had signed up to protect him, even at the cost of their own lives. But they also had families back home, people who loved them and worried about them. "How long before the next secure communication window?" William asked. 20 minutes, sir. I need to make a call." When Catherine's phone rang, she was sitting in the nursery at Kensington Palace watching Louis sleep. She had been there since the interview ended, needing the comfort of being close to her children. "I watched your interview," William said without preamble. And I realized that you're right. The peace process is important, but it's not more important than coming home to my family. I've already spent 4 weeks trying to solve a conflict that has raged for decades. I can't solve it in 2 more weeks, and I shouldn't die trying." Catherine closed her eyes, relief flooding through her. "Thank you. I'm coming home, Catherine. The helicopter leaves in an hour. Are you sure? I don't want you to resent me for pulling you away from important work. The most important work I have is being a husband and father. Everything else is secondary to that." After ending the call, Catherine went to each of her children's rooms. George was still awake, reading by lamplight. "Daddy's coming home," she whispered. George's face lit up with joy and relief. "Really, when?" "Tomorrow. He should be here tomorrow evening." Charlotte was fast asleep, but Catherine gently smoothed her daughter's hair and whispered, "Daddy's coming home, sweetheart. You won't have to kiss his photo goodnight much longer." In Louis's room, she stood by his crib and watched him sleep, his stuffed lion clutched tightly in his arms. "Your daddy is coming home, little man. King Lion did his job. He kept you safe until Daddy could come back." As Catherine prepared for bed, she felt lighter than she had in weeks. Tomorrow their family would be whole again. Tomorrow she could stop being both mother and father to 3 confused children. Tomorrow William would be home where he belonged. But even as she celebrated this victory, Catherine knew that this wouldn't be the last time William's duty would call him away from their family. There would be other missions, other causes, other moments when she would have to choose between supporting his service and protecting her family's happiness. Tonight, though, love had won over duty. Tonight, a wife's plea had brought her husband home. And for now, that was enough. The news of William's early return spread across Britain like wildfire. By the time his RAF transport touched down at Northolt, crowds had gathered despite the late evening hour. Catherine had insisted on meeting him at the airfield, bringing all 3 children despite the lateness of the hour and the media attention it would generate. As the aircraft's engines wound down, Catherine stood at the edge of the tarmac holding Louis's hand, with George and Charlotte pressed close beside her. All 3 children were practically vibrating with excitement, having napped in the car on the way to the airfield so they could stay awake for their father's return. "I can see the plane," Charlotte announced, jumping up and down. "Is Daddy really in there?" "Yes, sweetheart," Catherine replied, her own heart racing with anticipation. "Daddy is really in there." The aircraft door opened and William appeared at the top of the steps. Even from a distance, Catherine could see the exhaustion etched in his face, but also the relief and joy at being home. He raised his hand in a wave, not to the cameras or the crowd, but to his family waiting below. The moment his feet touched British soil, the children broke free from the security cordon and ran toward him. Louis reached him first, his little legs carrying him faster than anyone expected, and William swept him up into his arms. "Daddy, Daddy, you came back!" Louis shouted, wrapping his arms around William's neck. George and Charlotte arrived seconds later, and suddenly William was surrounded by his children, all talking at once, all wanting to touch him and reassure themselves that he was really there. "Did you bring us presents?" Charlotte asked, ever practical. "Did you see any real fighting?" George wanted to know. "Daddy, King Lion kept me safe like you said," Louis announced proudly. William laughed, the sound carrying across the tarmac and bringing tears to Catherine's eyes. It was the first time she had heard him laugh in 6 weeks, and the sound was like music. Finally, the children stepped back enough for William to walk toward Catherine. The cameras captured every step, every expression, as husband and wife came together after their longest separation. "Hello? Beautiful," William said softly as he reached her. "Hello yourself," Catherine replied, and then she was in his arms holding him tight, breathing in the familiar scent of him, feeling the solid reality of his presence. They held each other for a long moment, oblivious to the cameras and the crowd. This was their moment, their reunion, their family made whole again. "Thank you," William whispered against her ear. "Thank you for bringing me home. Thank you for coming," Catherine whispered back. The drive back to Kensington Palace was filled with chatter as the children peppered William with questions about his trip. He answered patiently, editing the more dangerous aspects but giving them enough detail to satisfy their curiosity. "Did you really help people stop fighting?" George asked seriously. "I hope so," William replied. "We made some progress. Sometimes that's all you can do. Make things a little bit better and hope someone else can continue the work." "Are you sad that you didn't finish?" Charlotte asked with the directness that only children possess. William considered the question carefully. "A little bit sad about the work, yes, but much happier to be home with you. Sometimes you have to choose what's most important, and you three, and Mummy, are always the most important thing to me." Once they were back at the palace and the children were finally asleep in their beds, William and Catherine found themselves alone in their bedroom for the first time in 6 weeks. The silence felt strange after so many weeks of video calls and careful conversations. "You look tired," Catherine said, studying his face in the soft lamplight. "I am tired, but it's good tired now. I was tired there from stress and worry and missing you all. This is just the tired that comes from a long journey home. Do you regret coming back early?" William pulled her close, settling back against the pillows with Catherine curled against his side. "No, I thought I might, but I don't. The work was important, but it wasn't irreplaceable. I am irreplaceable to you and the children, just as you're irreplaceable to me. The press is calling me everything from a devoted wife to a manipulative attention seeker," Catherine said with a rueful smile. "Apparently going public to bring your husband home is either deeply romantic or completely inappropriate, depending on who you ask. What do you think?" "I think I don't care what anyone else thinks. I think I did what any wife would do when her husband was in danger. I used every resource at my disposal to bring him home safely." William was quiet for a moment, processing the magnitude of what Catherine had done. Going public, giving that interview, challenging the entire royal protocol of keeping private matters private. It had been unprecedented. "You know this will change things," he said finally. "The palace, the press, the public, they'll all have opinions about what you did. Let them have opinions. Our children have their father back. That's worth any amount of criticism. I love you," William said simply. "I love your strength, your courage, your fierce protection of our family. I love that you were willing to break every rule to bring me home. I love you too. But William, we need to talk about the future. This can't happen again. I can't go through another 6 weeks of not knowing if you're coming home. The children can't either. I know. We'll have to be more careful about the missions I accept. More strategic about balancing duty with family life. I'm not asking you to stop serving. I would never ask that. But I am asking you to remember that your first duty is to us, to coming home safe." "I promise," William said, and Catherine could hear the sincerity in his voice. "I promise that nothing, no mission, no duty, no cause is worth losing what we have." The next morning, the children woke up early and crept into their parents' bedroom, hardly believing that their father was really home. They piled onto the big bed, a tangle of arms and legs and excited voices, and William realized that this chaotic, noisy, perfect family moment was worth more than any diplomatic achievement. Later that day, as they walked through Hyde Park as a family for the first time in 6 weeks, the children running ahead while William and Catherine strolled hand in hand, Catherine reflected on the journey they had all taken. "Do you think the children understand what happened?" she asked. Watching George push Charlotte on the swings while Louise tried to feed ducks that were too smart to come close to an enthusiastic 4-year-old. "I think they understand the important parts," William replied. "They understand that sometimes Daddy has to go away for work, but that family is the most important thing. They understand that Mummy fought to bring Daddy home and that Daddy chose to come home to them. And what do you understand?" William stopped walking and turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "I understand that I'm the luckiest man in the world. I understand that duty and service matter, but that love matters more. And I understand that I married a woman who will move heaven and earth to protect our family." As they continued their walk, Catherine realized that their goodbye 6 weeks ago had broken her heart, but their reunion had made it stronger. They had faced one of their greatest challenges as a couple and emerged more united than ever. The children ran back to them, breathless and happy, demanding that William push them on the roundabout and help them climb the big oak tree and play football on the grass. As Catherine watched her husband with their children, she knew that they had made the right choice. Sometimes love really did conquer all. Sometimes a wife's plea could bring a prince home. And sometimes, the most important battles were fought not on diplomatic missions in foreign countries, but in the quiet moments when families chose each other over everything else. That evening, as they tucked the children into bed together for the first time in 6 weeks, Charlotte looked up at both her parents and said, "Now we're a whole family again." "Yes, sweetheart," Catherine replied, meeting William's eyes over their daughter's head. "Now we're whole again." And in that moment, surrounded by their children in the safety of their home, they truly were.